Right in front of us, there's this large, bright red bird, and this thing is flying directly in our direction. This thing must have had a 5-foot wingspan. I've never seen a bird this big, and it's cruising right towards us, about 10 feet overhead. And this thing swoops right past us, and then it circles back. And then I start to get a little bit worried. Who knows if this thing's a starving eagle and it's gonna take its chances going after Junior. The last thing we need right now is for this kid to get gouged by eagle talons while we're lost. So we're just looking up at this thing, and I'm just trying to stay in between it and the kid. When the kid pipes up from behind us, trying to calm us down because we're trying to protect him, this kid just goes, "Guys, stop it. That's not even the big one. We're fine." We both look at each other and then at him, and we're a little bit confused, so we give him the facial signals like, "Hey buddy, cough up some more information. For starters, what do you mean that's not the big one? That bird's massive." And Junior just continues by saying, just scoffing off the situation, he just goes, "Those birds are harmless. But if we see the big one, we should probably go inside until it leaves." And again, every single sentence that this kid says just raises more questions. It doesn't really give me any answers. What, was this kid raised by a sphinx and he just learned how to speak English in riddles? Everything this kid says is just so nuanced, and he just says everything out of context. We have no idea what he's talking about. As I'm about to implode, trying to communicate my frustrations with Junior about his aloof and nuanced answers, I hear the bird land in the tree behind me. And I turn around right after Sam does, and all I see is this big, rugged tree. The only way I could explain it is that it was reminiscent of the Whomping Willow from Harry Potter. You know, the one from Prisoner of Azkaban? But it didn't look like when it was lush and green. It looked like in the winter when it was barren of all leaves. It wasn't one of those inviting trees that offered shade and moisture. It was just a large, grumpy old tree that looked like its great-great-great-grandfather might have been half a cactus. But that was not even the weird part about it. The weird part was what was in a massive red bird that we were just freaking out about was just pleasantly sitting in the tree. And this thing is just a parrot or a scarlet macaw. I think that's what they're called, a scarlet macaw. And again, that wasn't even the weird part. The scarlet macaw was sitting on a branch right next to a just as large blue and gold macaw. And next to him was a green Catalina macaw. And again, that wasn't even the weird part. Every inch of this tree was covered with weird exotic birds. I swear to God, there was like 4 toucans in this tree and about 50 other species that I couldn't even tell you what they were called. It was like National Geographic brought the world's most beautiful birds all into one place for a photo shoot. Finches, parrots, pheasants, doves, lorikeet, toucans, cranes, you name it, it was there. And as I'm looking at it, I start to notice the change in my vision again. It hadn't gone away this whole time, but I was starting to get good at ignoring it. Because everything was so bland on this ranch, nothing really stuck out for me to really realize how heightened my vision was. So even with the saturation and vibrance in my eyesight so enhanced, nothing really stands out here. It's all beige and dirt. But that was until I started looking at this tree. Everything on this thing was just so colorful and vibrant. So it brought back a tidal wave of anxiety, attached to a thought that my vision might have been permanently altered. So I had to try to calm myself by talking myself down, just trying to convince myself that this is all just a part of their weird gimmick here. And I was just telling myself over and over again that this could be potentially possible. Like, these guys dropped us off in this section of the ranch where we could naturally come across things like this that they planted so we would become a believer. It's not impossible to collect exotic birds. Plenty of zoos have collections similar to this one. Plenty of people have pet parrots. It's definitely an elaborate hoax, but it's not impossible. And the climate here is probably similar from where they come from too, so they could probably survive out here. And internally, I had to start rationalizing it and making excuses for it because what I was looking at was just so out of this world bizarre. And if I didn't start rationalizing it, I would really start to panic. And as all of these thoughts are just whizzing through my brain, I'm still just gawking at this tree. I'm just hypnotized by it. As scared as I was, this thing was immaculate. It was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. Just this monstrous, abnormal tree decorated with the world's most beautiful birds. It was almost like the birds were decorations like some otherworldly Christmas tree. It looked like something plucked right off of Pandora and massive blue people were about to greet us in Navi. But I'm still standing there just frozen in this melting pot of emotions. Just fear, denial, amazement, confusion. When Sam Sam finally breaks the silence by saying, there's something very wrong here. This place isn't right. We need to leave. And I could tell that he was letting the panic get to him. He wasn't talking himself down. And that's the last thing that we needed in this situation. I don't need him going AWOL. So I try to start calming him down by trying to convince him of the same things that I'm convincing myself. So I start to whisper to him so Junior doesn't hear me. Bro, this is possible. You hear the way that these weirdos talk about this place. You see how desperately they want us to hop on this bandwagon. I could see these guys ordering exotic birds to set this up so we'd see it. Bro, I'm telling you, they did this. They dropped us off over there and they wanted us to come across this and see it. And I see in Sam's face that he's just trying to nod along and get his mind right. I could see that he's trying to let me get through to him, but he can't help but to respond. Bro, I didn't see it when we drove by. I only saw it once we got out. How could I have missed that thing? Look at that tree. How could we drive by that and not see it? This man was right. He was spitting facts. He was 100% right. But I couldn't let myself fall into that kind of thinking right now. I couldn't let him fall into that kind of thinking right now. I had to reel him back in. I had to get him back. And I'm like, bro, we missed it because we were looking for the headquarters, not a tree. Think about it, dude. You don't notice a specific car until you buy one. Then all of a sudden you start noticing 100 a day. We weren't looking for a tree like that, so we didn't see it. And this seemed to get through to him a little bit because I could see his body language start to fade away, further away from having a panic attack. I could see in his eyes that he got control of his emotions and he was starting to think tactically again, as he usually does. It's not common you see him start to lose it like that. But I couldn't even get myself to look back at the tree of birds. I had to turn my back to this thing in an attempt to stay calm. If I looked at this thing, it was like it was reeling me in. And when I turned my back to this tree to try to calm myself down, I look and I see that this kid is still with us. And I realize that this kid is our best chance at finding our way back. If I could just get this kid to cooperate with straight answers. And Sam must have came to the same conclusion because he looks at Junior and just opens up in a very calm tone. Hey Junior, bud, I think we're a little bit lost. Do you mind being the captain of the ship on the way back? We're not trying to make any more wrong turns out here. And Junior's just leaning on the golf cart looking as bored as ever, and he just mumbles back, you guys didn't even make any wrong turns. You just have to finish the tour. And right then I'm just thinking, this kid's about to be the hardest code to crack. Everything that he says is so vague, it is just maddening. But I have no choice but to stay on his good side. So I try to follow up with something that's a little bit more pushy but not outright aggressive. And I just go, man, I really need to get back to my girl. She probably really needs me. She's just sick at a hotel and she's waiting for me. I know that your dad probably wants us to see a couple more things like this, but we really need to get back to HQ as fast as we can. I was trying to imply that his dad probably convinced him to be in on all this and I was aware of it so he could break the fourth wall and help us get out of here quicker. I could tell that his dad probably told him to not let us leave until we saw all the props that he had left out for us. And I think that this kid's gonna be slightly affected by what I said because I'm trying to imply to him that I know more than he thinks I know, but he's not affected at all. This kid just replies to me in like kind of a bratty know-it-all tone. Just finish the tour, it's not that hard. This kid was infuriating. We didn't study the tour like his dad did. We didn't know which way to go. We have no idea where we are, so I clap back at him with, hey, but it's kind of hard when you don't know which way to drive. And this little snot just doubles down. It's not that hard when all you have to do is drive. Just drive. Finally, we got something out of him. I frustrated him enough to actually give us a little bit more information without realizing that he gave us more information. I solved one of his riddles. He said, just drive, which meant that we were on the right road, going the right way. And all we needed to do was just keep going. And now that we knew which way to go, I wasn't nearly as frustrated with him. We got what we needed to know from him, so I could just go back to treating him like a kid and just being friendly to him. So we all just climbed back into the golf cart and I asked him, hey, but if there's any landmarks that you need us to see or any turns that we need to make, just let us know. And this kid just replies, it doesn't matter, just drive. As if he's so annoyed that we're asking for guidance when we have no idea where we are or what the next stop on the tour is. And there's nothing that we could do but listen to him and drive. So Sam just gets the golf cart moving and we just start rumbling along this road again. And even as we're driving away, I couldn't get myself to look back at that tree of birds. There was just something about it that felt so wrong. And I was in pure denial at that point just to stay focused. I had to pretend that it wasn't as bizarre as it was to try to keep my mind sharp. And ironically, something that helped was Junior's nonchalant, sarcastic demeanor. Even though it was incredibly annoying at times, it was comforting to know that he wasn't freaked out by what he was seeing. As weird as it was, seeing a young kid act as if this is everyday life, it makes you feel like you're overreacting and it's a little bit comforting. So I'm just sitting in this golf cart and I'm just zoning out, daydreaming about what lines I'm going to use to tell Tim off when I see him. While simultaneously, I'm trying to keep note of every major landmark that we pass. Because I'm just trying to get some bearings on our surroundings in case we're going in the wrong direction, we need to turn back. And I felt like I was doing such a good job staying focused, but I guess at some point I just kind of lost control of it, and I just started to get overwhelmingly drowsy. Remember that feeling that you got when you were a kid looking out the window of a car on the long drive back from a birthday party, when your energy was so high because you were slamming sodas and slices of cake, just riding an absolute sugar spike all day, and you're just fighting to keep your eyes open because you don't want the day to end, but things are just passing you through the window and the horizon is just slightly bobbing, and the hum of the car just starts to feel like NyQuil, and you're just picking your head up as your chin is hitting your chest while you're dozing off, but your eyes are so heavy that even when you force them open, they're still crisscrossing and blurry. I felt like I was in 3rd grade fighting off a Benadryl in 2nd period math class during allergy season. I was so drowsy that I felt loopy, and this just went on and on until my daydreams just fully took over, and I was just playing out all sorts of made-up scenarios in my head, and I'm just not even realizing that I practically fully fell asleep. I was in the middle of a lovely daydream, telling off the entire headquarters staff about how rude they were, while slapping the lips off Tim for leaving his kid with us randomly, when my forehead hit the dashboard and it just lit me up. That dashboard lit me up like a Christmas tree. I hit my face so hard on that dashboard, I was surprised that there wasn't a Looney Tunes level dent on. But as much as it hurt, it was really what I needed at that point. It shocked me back awake, and the pain brought me back to where I needed to be. I needed to be extremely alert and present. Right as I got my bearings and my eyes stopped watering from the impact on my nose, I finally got the chance to look around. But I'm looking around and I didn't recognize a thing. So I looked behind us to see if I recognize anything in the distance, but it's just an empty road. There's no landmarks or buildings behind us, just open ranch and fences. And I have no idea how long I've been out. There's no way that it could have been more than a couple minutes, because if I've been out for 10 minutes, we should be back at headquarters at this point. But when I turn back around, the first thing that I do is look at Sam like, bro, why'd you stop like that? And he just looked so frustrated. And he's just white knuckling the steering wheel as if he's impatiently waiting for a grandmother to cross the street. So I turn my attention to what is obstructing us from driving, and I realize what caused Sam to brake check me. There's just a rabbit in the road in front of us, and he's waiting for the rabbit to hop out of the road before we start going again. And initially just looking at a rabbit, you're like, oh yeah, I understand stopping. I don't want to kill this rabbit for no reason. But then as you look at it a little bit more, it's an absolute mind bend. It started to feel like my depth perception was off. It was as if there was a 2D cutout of a rabbit pasted onto the road. And I only say that because the scale of it was off. This rabbit looked completely out of place. It looked as if the proportions of the road and the fence were too small compared to the rabbit. But then when it hopped a step getting off the road, it hit me. Seeing it moved fixed the depth perception for me. The rabbit was not that close to us. It was way down the road. But this rabbit was absolutely massive. Like, I see why Sam stomped on the brakes this early, because this rabbit is so big that it looks closer than it is. By first glance, it looked like it was right ahead of us, but now that we see it moving and the depth perception clears up, you could see that it's like 30 feet away. So Sam just started slowly pulling up closer and closer to it. And the closer that we got to it, the more it looked fake. This rabbit was the size of a St. Bernard. This thing was like a St. Bernard, but super fluffy. But there was nothing special about this rabbit, excluding its size. It looked like you microwaved a regular residential rabbit and it 10x'd in size. Not mutated or upgraded, just a jumbo rabbit. And as we're closing in on it, it sees us coming and it hops fully off the road to give us some space. And as we're getting closer to it, there's nothing menacing about it. It acted exactly like a regular residential rabbit. It was just skittish and paranoid. We drive by it as slowly as possible to study it as we pass. And as we're looking at it, we could see that in the field behind it, there's dozens of these things just hopping around. And I swear to you, if I hadn't seen this one close up, I would have thought that the rest of them in the field were either sheep or baby cows. I've seen massive prize rabbits on the internet before where a girl is holding a rabbit the same size as her, but I thought that those were genetic mutations and really rare. I didn't think that you could breed them and get consistent results of massive rabbits. And right as I'm about to turn my attention to Junior to try to get some information about these gigantic bunnies, our golf cart just gets engulfed by a shadow for a second. And I had ignored it for a second until it clicked to me that a plane hadn't went overhead all day. See, where I live, I'm used to planes flying overhead all day, like every 6 to 8 minutes, and they just cast massive shadows throughout the day. But that was the first time that it had happened since we'd been there. So maybe there's a plane flying overhead and they're looking for us. Maybe they had a propeller plane looking for us and Tim. Who knows? Maybe somebody's out here actually looking for us. And it was a moment of excitement and relief until I realized that I didn't hear any propellers or an engine. And I started getting butterflies in my stomach as I'm following this shadow as it's going over the field, casting its shadow over these oversized rabbits. And I see the shadows circling the field repeatedly and these rabbits just scurrying in every direction. And then all I hear is Junior's voice from the back seat, and and he sounds a little nervous and he just goes, "That's a big one. We should probably go inside now." And this was the first time I had heard even the slightest concern in Junior's voice. I could tell that Junior was a little bit scared of whatever that was. And I look at Sam and I could tell that that's all he needed to hear too. We're ready to go inside. I hear Junior climbing out of the golf cart to my right, so I just turn my head that way. And I'm expecting to see the other open field to our right that was there when we stopped. But instead, I find myself looking at a rundown home with a small shed. And I just reactively ask Sam, "Bro, was that there when we stopped?" And Sam looks at me dead serious and just goes, "Probably not. Go." And Junior's just running over there, calling for us to hurry as if what's overhead is a legitimate threat. So we start running towards the house, and then this kid shouts at us in an angry manner, "What are you guys doing? Come this way." This kid's running towards the small, janky looking shed to the right of the house. And I want to give him pushback initially because this thing's tiny, but Sam just changes direction, goes right towards him, following orders. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go with you too. And as I get closer, I realize that this shed is more of a doghouse with those plastic dog doors on the front. Those ones that look like the car wash flaps, where the dog could just push through it going in and out, but for the most part it keeps the elements out when they're hanging flat. So we're just running up to this and I see Junior enter first. Even he needs to crouch down to get in there, so I'm starting to seriously doubt if we're all gonna fit in this thing. I start to get very conscious of the fact that I'm gonna be the third person to enter this thing and I might not fit. So I start freaking out at the thought that I might only be able to get half my body in there and my legs are just gonna be out the back kicking around for a massive bird to steal me. And at that same moment, I hear in the distance the sound that could only be one of those rabbits getting smoked by the big one in the distance. And you would think that hearing that sound would calm me down because the immediate threat is preoccupied, but it didn't. It just confirmed to me that whatever that thing is large enough to hunt those Great Dane rabbits. Therefore, it could take a shot at me. And it's not like Junior was extremely detailed and descriptive about how many of these things were flying around. He just said, "That's a big one. I'm good on getting pecked to death by a pterodactyl." So I'm just out there exposed, impatiently waiting for Sam to get in there ahead of me. As he pushes through these dog doors, I'm pleasantly surprised that he's seeming to fit in there pretty easily. He just crouched and fully duck walked in, and it didn't seem like he was fighting for space in there at all. So the second that he's fully in, I crouch down and I start pushing my way through this tiny opening. And I'm just covering my head with my hands so I don't bonk my head on anything when I enter. And as the strips of plastic start to slide down my back and fall behind me as I enter, I peek up from looking at my feet to see how much space I have to maybe stand up, and obviously how much elbow room I have between me and the other guys. I was fully hunched over with my knees 60% bent and my hands completely covering my head when I realized I had plenty of space and I'm just looking weird standing in a room crouched. Sam was standing 5 feet away from me, standing completely straight up, looking at me so concerned. And he shot a look at me and then gestured with his hands like, "Look at this room, are you seeing this?" I know that he was expecting the same thing that I was when we entered. A small, crowded, low-ceiling, dusty shed. And we were both expecting to have to pack into here like sardines. Yet here we are standing in a wide-open, carpeted room with 10-foot ceilings. This shed opened up like the tent from the Quidditch World Cup, but there was absolutely nothing magical about this room. I didn't see any chocolate frogs, wands, or funny ginger kids playing pranks. This place looked like the saddest break room from a 90s accounting office. This place was decked out with light brown carpet, light brown walls, brown shelving, brown furniture, and those dingy yellow fluorescent lights. It looked like the place that Ed Norton's character in Fight Club probably lost his mind. Everything about this place was just so dull and lifeless. This was just the perfect place for somebody to chain smoke cigarettes indoors and guzzle burnt black coffee until they reeked of anxiety-filled BO, just fantasizing about cracking their boss across the face with their keyboard. The only color that seemed to be allowed in this room was coming from a humming Coca-Cola vending machine. The Coca-Cola machine, just another thing that's perfectly on brand for a life-sucking 90s office. The only access to color and dopamine is through brightly branded soda beverages that are laced with so much sugar and chemicals that they're basically poison. I start to slowly stand up and I'm just trying to grasp how a place like this can exist on a ranch. It genuinely felt like an office space that you would find on the 6th floor of this massive building in a city. But before I even had the chance to ask Junior any questions about where we were, he was already running over to the vending machine and just shoving quarters into it. And again, I tried to find comfort with the fact that he seemed to be very familiar with this place. He ran up to those vending machines like this was a habit of his, like he was a frequent visitor of this place. Just a little kid with his little niche hobbies, and he knows whenever he comes in here, he's just pumped to grab a soda. We start walking over to him, and once I was a few more steps in, I could see the far right corner of this room. And I just see a small table with 2 chairs in the corner with 2 men just sitting on there chatting nonchalantly. And they don't seem to acknowledge us. They're just sitting there chatting, having some type of meeting, as if they do this here often. They didn't seem to find our entrance into this hidden office space odd at all. They just kept going about their conversation, paying us no mind. But I just couldn't get myself to take my eyes off these guys. One of them seemed like a well-off tech guy, the type of person that you would come across in Simi Valley who owns a $15 million tech company, but he wears the same t-shirts and slacks every day. He had that super techie feel to him though, with a clearly techie watch and a techie tablet. But the thing that stood out the most were his glasses. They clearly had some type of smart feature in them because you could see notifications coming across the lenses periodically. This guy looked more efficient with tech than Apple Store employees, and that's saying something. While the other guy sitting across from him looked like he was obsessed with the show Peaky Blinders. I'm talking a straight Sherlock Holmes brown getup with a Peaky Blinders undercut. This dude looked like Tommy Shelby's uncle who happened to be a mad scientist. And now that I think about it, I guess that makes him look like Oppenheimer. The sodas start falling into the vending machine and it got both of these guys' attention. They didn't seem annoyed or anything as if we were intruding on their privacy. They just looked over at Junior just grinning. At this point, we were right up next to this vending machine with Junior, and this was the most excited I'd seen him since that first house that we stopped at. He basically forced sodas into our hands while saying, guys, you gotta try these are the best. I didn't even look at the label before one of the guys in the corner called over to Junior in a very polite tone. It was the guy that was dressed like a Peaky Blinders guy, and he just goes, hey boy, grab me a whistle too, since you're handing them out for free. So Junior just finishes his chug of this soda and then turns around and starts putting more quarters into the machine for this guy. But I'm still just trying to understand what he just said. He just said, grab me a whistle. Some people where I'm from call soda pop, but I've never heard somebody call soda a whistle. So I finally look at this drink that he handed me in an effort to open it to take a sip, so I wouldn't have to enter their conversation just yet. I could just take a sip of my drink and let them talk a little bit. And the soda was just orange, like the color of Crush or orange Fanta, but the label said, thirsty, just grab a whistle. I'd never seen this brand of soda before. Maybe it was a Utah thing. It tasted fine. It was just kind of a regular soda, but Junior seemed to love it because he was already running over to the Peaky Blinders dude telling him about how this is his favorite, the same thing that he said to us. And the man was super polite. He was just telling Junior that it was his favorite drink when he was his age. Sam and I definitely didn't feel comfortable enough to approach these men yet, but they definitely started to turn their attention towards us, as if calling Junior over was actually an effort to break the ice with us. And they both just opened their mouth and started asking us a question almost on top of one another. The Peaky Blinders guy asked us, and when are you two from? Right as the tech guy stepped on the end of his sentence saying, yeah, where might you two be from? I knew Sam wasn't in a very talkative mood at this point, so I just took the lead in the conversation and I just go, I'm from Chicago, he's from Colorado. And I explained why we're here. We happen to be in Utah at the same time and we just wanted to check out the ranch. But we're regretting it now because we can't seem to find the exit. I was attempting to be friendly enough to get these guys to like me, but I was also trying to immediately turn the conversation to the fact that we're lost and we could really use some help here. But they didn't seem to pick up on it at all, or they intentionally ignored it. And the Peaky Blinders guy just responded to us as if he was ending the conversation. And he just goes something along the lines of, oh, Utah, very fascinating. I have a meeting with Boris soon. I gotta go. And just starts to excuse himself by talking to the tech guy saying it was great to see you again. He just did one of those Midwest goodbyes, slapped the table and started to get up. And the tech guy simultaneously starts standing up as well, as if he's gonna scurry off to another meeting as well. And I could see a notification hit his glasses and he starts walking over to a door that's labeled bathroom over to the left. At first I tried to infer that we needed some help without acting panicked, but seeing the only other people that we've seen since Tim disappeared start to leave made me start to panic, because we really needed some help here and I really needed to speak up at this moment. So I just blurred out to this guy, hey, do you mind helping us back to headquarters? And the tech guy turns towards us and I could see his glasses doing something, and he's just looking us up and down as if he's scanning us. And he just paused there looking at us as if he was waiting for his glasses to finish telling him something before he replied, don't let today get you guys down, bright future ahead of you two. And then he just popped the bathroom door open and slipped into it before closing it behind him, while the other man passed him and made his way through a door that looked like it might have been a storage closet. And both of these doors just closed right behind them, and we're just standing there in complete shock for a moment because these guys just randomly dismissed themselves. But then the tech guy popped his head back out of the bathroom door and just turned his attention right towards Sam, and all he said was, and doctor, choose Texas, with a tone that would imply that he was excited for Sam. Before the man even had the chance to close the door, Sam is already sprinting towards him aggressively. but he managed to close it a split second before Sam got his hands on the handle. Sam just ripped this bathroom door open and just stood in the doorway staring in. And I ran up to look over his shoulder, and I'm expecting to see this tech guy just cowering in the corner because Sam just beelined towards it. I was just expecting a guy in the fetal position pleading to Sam for him to not hurt him. But once I got to the door and was able to see over Sam's shoulder, the bathroom was completely empty. And seeing that prompted me to hustle to the other door that the Peaky Blinders guy used. And I just grabbed it. I damn near ripped it off its hinges. And this room is nothing but a storage closet with nothing inside. This guy is nowhere to be found. There's no sign of him. There's no exit. Once I finished frantically checking the storage closet, just clearing shelves and trying to look behind little cupboards, I turned my attention towards Sam, and he looks absolutely manic. He looks like he's contemplating everything that he's ever been taught simultaneously, and he barely mumbles the words, "How did he know?" before just clenching his jaw back closed. I could tell his body's just filled with tension, but I'm not really sure what he's asking because there was so many things wrong with the interaction that we just had. But trying to dive into it and make sense of it in the moment really did nothing for us. All we needed to do was focus on getting out of here. So I just try to calm him down by saying, "It doesn't matter, stay focused." And Sam replies, "It doesn't matter? I've seen 3 men walk into a room and disappear today. If that doesn't matter, then what does?" He was completely right. The way he was acting was totally justified. The emotions that he was feeling were valid, and the tone that he was using matched the intensity of the situation. But it didn't change the fact that none of it helped us. Standing here in this room panicking was like standing in quicksand, and mulling over what we just witnessed wouldn't lead to anything but anxious suffocation. We needed to attack this situation head on and not become victims to it and let it overwhelm us. So I just hit Sam with, "Hey bro, the plan's to get out of here. We're going to execute that plan, and we're going to execute it violently if we have to. Detach, assess, execute." Sam wasn't a panicker. He wasn't getting overwhelmed here. It was more as if he was trying to get me to match his intensity. He was trying to get through to me that he was ready to treat this situation very differently than we had been up to this point. I'd been being polite to people and trying to be calm and civil. He wasn't having a breakdown. He wanted to execute an escape in a cold, tactical manner, and he needed me to meet him at that level. So he just replies to me, stone-faced, no emotion left, "Let's finish this tour." And right in the middle of this dead serious conversation, Junior shouts over to us from the dog door. He just goes, "The coast is clear, we can leave now." It was so weird having an understanding with somebody in such a high-stakes situation, to only be interrupted by a 10-year-old acting like today's a regular afternoon, and the coast was clear, everything's good. Before we walk over to the exit, I asked Sam, "What are we gonna do with this kid?" I wasn't asking him in a malicious way as if we're gonna hurt a child or something. It was more if I'm asking him if we should even bring this kid with us, or if we should try to raise the intensity on him a bit to try to get more information out of him. And Sam goes, "Honestly, I think he's our only way out. I think we should keep him, and I think we should treat him well." And I fully agree with him. I think we should keep Junior around and we should keep him happy. But I reply, doubling down on the intensity, "If we come across anybody else, we need to get some answers out of them, and it doesn't matter what it takes." Sam just nods in approval. He's down to do that as well, and we just start walking towards the door. And we both just duck to make our way out of the dog door, and once we stand up, we're back outside. And the first thing that I'm planning on doing once we exit this door is to turn around and assess this shed. I just wanted to see how this structure could be so deceivingly large on the inside. The second I was outside, I was completely overwhelmed by something else. Everything looked completely different from when we arrived. The landscape in front of us just looked so foreign. I almost thought that we exited through a back door and we weren't even looking in the right direction. But that was until I saw the obvious. Our golf cart is just sitting on the road right in front of us in the same spot that we left it. This place felt like a fever dream. Every time you think that you're taking control of a situation, somebody just pulls the sheet right out from under you. I look over to Sam to see his reaction to this new scenery, but he's as cold as he was on the inside. He was locked in. He was not going to let it fluster him, so I was not going to let it fluster me. And Junior's already at the golf cart just impatiently waiting for us, and we're just marching towards him until Sam hits me on the chest, signaling for me to stop. So I look over to him, and he's clearly looking around, listening intently to something. It was kind of windy, so I was mostly hearing that until I heard a little bit of what he was honing in on. It sounded faintly like phones ringing and like bells going off initially. I was trying to focus on it more, but I just couldn't tell what direction it was coming from. When I would swivel my head around trying to lock in on where the sound was coming from, it wouldn't get any more clear. And I look back towards Sam, and he's doing the same thing that I'm doing, just trying to find the source of this sound. And we pause and we look at each other for a moment, and we both hear a clear, cheering celebration of what sounds like hundreds of people. But the only odd thing was that it didn't sound like it was coming from a nearby building. It sounded like it was coming from below us. The direction of the sound hit us at the same time, so we both start to kneel to get closer to the sound. And the closer that we got to the ground, the clearer the ambiance became. It sounded like a Wall Street broker room, closing deals and making calls and celebrating. It sounded like hundreds of salesmen relentlessly cold calling and talking trash to one another, with just bells and celebrations bursting out randomly. We started off in a kneel, but we eventually both made it all the way to the ground, on our stomachs with our ears to the dirt listening. I could literally hear specific details of conversations of people talking about margin deals and astronomical gains. There were hundreds of people right below us, and it sounded like they were just one floor under us in an apartment building. It was as clear as hearing your parents arguing in the kitchen, and you could hear every single detail of their personal life and their fight, from your bedroom upstairs as you're trying to ignore it. The only difference is that we were in the middle of a desert in Utah, where basements aren't even common in the state in general, let alone a massive call center just below the ground. But here we are with our cheeks pressed to the dirt, absolutely sure that we were right above a massive call center and hundreds of people. It was so clear that there couldn't have been more than 2 feet of dirt between us and their ceiling. We were not playing around anymore. We needed answers from someone. And if it meant digging through the ceiling of a call center to get somebody's help, so be it. So Sam just looks at me and he goes, dig. So we just start both ripping at the dirt with our fingers, trying to get the hard soil to budge with our fingernails. The ground wasn't so hard that it was impossible, but it definitely wasn't fun. But once we got a small hole started, it started to get easier as we went. We must have looked like absolute crazy people, just digging a small hole with our hands. But at that moment, it was worth it. We got this hole about 1 foot wide and 1 foot deep when Junior started to probably get bored and started walking over to us. And he was just dragging his feet over to us, looking over our shoulders to see what we were doing. And with the hole this wide and deep, you could stick your head into it and get a better listen at what's below. And when you did, it was like you were in the room with all those people, how clear it was. This place was loud and energetic and exciting, and with your head in that hole, it was crystal clear. I was half expecting to hear Jordan Belfort hop on a mic and start giving a speech about not leaving. It felt as if we were just a foot away from real help, and we're just frantically digging, ripping up our nails in the process. But Junior's just standing over us, ready to burst our bubble. It was as if he was teasing us like a know-it-all kid that we were doing something that the local bully wouldn't like. The kid just goes, hey, you guys shouldn't be digging here, they wouldn't like that, in just a real condescending tone. And Sam looks up at him and goes, I think your dad and his boss will understand why we did it. And in that same condescending tone, this kid replies, who cares what the boss thinks? You guys are gonna piss off the big blue meanies. Sam and I both stop digging immediately and just turn our attention to Junior. And we just both ask at the exact same time, why would this piss them off? And Junior just kicks a pile of dirt back into the hole while saying, they just don't like when you dig. You guys should cover that up before they notice and we should leave. And to be honest, this was enough to scare Sam and I into stopping. The kid was being condescending, but it didn't seem like he was lying. So we just start refilling the hole as fast as possible, just shoveling mounds of dirt back into it and patting it down. And we're just muffling the sounds from below more and more with every pile of dirt that we put back in. And Sam tries to get a little bit more information out of Junior, so he follows up by saying, hey bud, are the big blue meanies like the cops of this ranch? I was just assuming that he was trying to find out if Junior had any more insight at what these could possibly be, and if there was any way that they could help us. And Junior just replied with a really long, no. And he took a long pause before just following up and saying, they're just mean. Again, this kid was clearly a well of knowledge about this ranch, but he spoke as vaguely as humanly possible. So we have no other choice but to just get back into this cart, and I'm mentally preparing to try to fight off that odd drowsiness. But then Sam asked the kid one more question before we started driving. How many more stops until this tour is over? And Junior just goes, technically this is the last stop, because the reservoir is right there. And ahead of us to the left is this rather large body of water. And according to Junior, that's the last place that we have to stop before we actually get to go back to headquarters. We didn't have much of a reason to not trust Junior, so we just listened to him and we drove up to the body of water. And he jumped out of the golf cart the second we pulled up to the path that led from the road to the body of water. And he just started running to this thing. And we just look at each other before just shrugging our shoulders like, what else are we supposed to do but go with him? And we start following. It was only a short jog from the golf cart until we were standing at the edge of this body of water. But as we skid to a halt, I had a eureka moment. I just felt like I realized so many things at once. While I'm gazing over this oddly placed lake in the middle of a desert, I realized that I hadn't checked my phone for service, and I don't know why. I get like 6 hours of screen time a day. I check my phone every 3 minutes usually, but it just hit me in this moment to check it. And I also realized that there's another man at the other end of this lake just staring at us on a horse. So I start patting my pockets looking for my phone, but I don't feel it anywhere. So I look to Sam and he can tell what I'm doing right away. So he reaches into his pocket and he takes out both of our phones. Initially, I thought that was a little bit weird, but he cleared up my concern right away. Bro, you were completely out of it on the last drive and I just took it out of your pocket to see if it had service. And he just held up both of our phones to me, turned on the home screens, and they both had this weird staticky glitch going on. And he handed mine back to me and he just said, "Who do you think that is?" while nodding his head towards the direction of the man on the horse on the other side of this lake. So we both turn our heads to look at him at the same time, and right when we do, this dude kicks his horse and starts galloping in our direction. And I mean galloping. I don't mean trotting, I don't mean running, I mean he was hauling ass to us with a purpose. But he had to circle the entire lake though, so we're just standing there waiting while he's just slowly circling it. But as he's coming around the left side of the lake, I noticed some movement in between us and him that caught our eye. There was just a group of animals jumping into the lake, and initially I thought it was a group of kids because they're walking bipedal, but when I squinted my eyes, I realized what they actually were. This was a group of penguins waddling up to the lake and hopping in one by one. I don't know a thing about penguin species, but they look like the ones from Happy Feet. The main character ones, not the smaller ones with the yellow built-in eyebrows. And I got that same sinking feeling that I got when I was looking at all those exotic birds. Those things shouldn't be here, but at least the exotic birds made a little bit of sense because they could survive the climate. Penguins made no sense. They stuck out like a sore thumb. They're gonna overheat here. There's no way they could even survive a week in this climate. And now with that realization, seeing these things in between us and the man galloping towards us, he started to feel menacing, and the closer that he got, the more I could see the aggression in his face. And I didn't know what was making me feel more uneasy. Was it the clearly aggressive cowboy or the out of place Arctic birds? But this man didn't seem to be paying any attention to the penguins. His eyes were locked in on us as if the penguins were a regular everyday occurrence for him. And my attention is just shooting back and forth between the birds and the cowboy, and I'm just trying to keep track of both. But then the last penguin dives into the water, and now it's just the cowboy closing in on us. And I couldn't help but keep turning my attention towards the water. I just wanted to keep an eye on these penguins in case they were swimming in our direction too. But as I'm briefly scanning the lake, I don't see any disturbance in the water whatsoever. It was as if the surface of it was just perfect glass. At this point, the cowboy is only about 30 feet from us and he's slowing down. So at least he's planning on stopping and not just running through us. And right before he started talking, I just thought to myself how odd it was that the lake had no ripples. And I just watched 10 large birds hop in, not so gracefully. And as I was trying to start to make sense of it, this cowboy looking man just starts venomously shouting, "Get away from him, you devil." I hope you like part 2. Part 3 will be out before you know it. If it's already out, it's in the middle of the screen right here. If it's not out yet, this is what YouTube thinks you'll like.